So before the break, I was having a conversation with Samuel Kuria. We better know him as SK Blue, and he was telling us about his journey and how exactly he became a musician into selling a company worth millions of company. Right now, SK Blue, you're running a conglomerate of companies, Gold Avenue. So take me through that story. How exactly did you come to be? Because I realize you're in energy, in communication. What exactly are you dealing with? And how exactly did it come to be?
So from music into TV production, from TV production we started lending, and we just realized there was a bigger need, bigger than we actually thought of. So we kept sitting down with investors, especially international investors, and international investors kept telling us, we get it what you're doing, but we can't touch you. So we kept asking, how is it that you can't shake hands with us? They kept saying, because you're too small. So that was
too small, and you're a multi-billionaire in Kenyan terms. What do they mean by too small?
They were saying too small. Unless you're looking for a larger amount of money, unless you're looking for at least $1 million upward, 100 million upward, we can't touch you. And that was a shocker for us. So we had to go back on the drawing board and now relook at what it is that we are doing, because we realized that we can't grow any further unless we are able to get participation from investors to scale. So that's why we decided to exit the opportunity that we had as a lending house, and now repackaged ourselves as Gold Avenue Africa now. And Gold Avenue Africa was meant to participate in three main sectors. Number one, energy. Number two, logistics. And number three, communication, because I was in that communication space.
All right. You've mentioned invested several times, and one of the biggest questions, or rather the audiences, other entrepreneurs ask me is that how do I get access to these investors? How did you go about it? Yeah. How did you go about seeking investors, especially foreign investors, to invest in your business? And how did you protect yourself?
Yeah. So there are a few kinds of investors. There is the first level of investors. It's called the 3 Fs: family, friends, and there's a third F. The third F is normally called family, friends, and fools. People who just so people who just love you, even if they just don't understand what it is that you're saying. They're just willing to stand by you, and therefore they're not necessarily buying into the opportunity, but they're buying you, the person.
Yeah.
So the second category is now sophisticated investors.
Yeah.
Sophisticated investors are now professionals who've been in the space where they've been able to put money on fixed deposit for a year and things like that. They've been able to put money in a chama, and therefore these people know how to do 1-year cycles of money, and they are willing to give you their resources as long as it doesn't stay with you for more than 1 year. That's an interesting one, because now these are people who are professionally employed but are looking for an above market return. And then there is the third category of investors, which is now institutional investors. Yeah. Institutional investors now are looking for growth-based businesses. These guys are slightly longer term, but these are the guys who are telling you, I can't invest because your business is too small. Yeah.
Interesting. And in doing our research, I know you do a lot of training, especially on finance and investments. And one of the things that I got out is that you're a man literally run your business on principles. And I got to capture at least 4 principles that I'd like to discuss as we continue on with the show. One of your first principle is that they can take your fruit, but then they cannot take your fruitfulness. What exactly do you mean by this?
So they can take your fruit. Takes us back to, you remember the days when we were lending?
Yes.
Just before we started lending, we realized that simply because of how long it took for us to be paid, most of the time we got auctioned. We got auctioned so many times.
How many times have you been auctioned?
11 times.
11 times?
Yeah, 11 times. Because it's not that you're not doing what you are meant to do, but haven't gotten paid. And we kept being auctioned and coming back. And we realized, okay, they can take your fruit, but they cannot take your fruitfulness.
Interesting.
When you fall down,
you still
just
come back up.
rise again. And we say, instead of competing with the circumstance, create, because creation is your way to fruitfulness.
Quite interesting.
So,
another principle.
So that's where that came from.
Another principle that you mentioned, you already said they can take your fruit, but they cannot take your fruitfulness. You've also mentioned instead of competing, you create. Another of your famous principles is that you do not need to own, just access. What exactly do you mean by this?
Exactly. So what we teach in our class, we call our class of investors, and we teach kingdom economics. So kingdom economics is basically looking at how economies were run by kings. And when you look at kings and how they ran the economies under commonwealth. So the wealth was communal. So under any kingdom, you'd realize that the idea was not to own, but the idea was that the best the king can give you is access.
Wow.
So we don't strive to own, we strive to access, because what you own, you protect. What you access is protected by the king.
Wow, interesting. And a final principle that I like to touch on is that do not fall in love with the vehicle, fall in love with the why. What exactly do you mean?
Yeah, so do not fall in love with the vehicle is, you've seen, as we mentioned, I started as a musician,
yes,
then a producer, then a lending house, then an investment company. The idea of it is that at the end of the day, the essence of you is being productive so that you may be able to impact and transform lives. So some of the times when I speak to musicians especially, they're at the point where they're saying, all I know and all I want to do is music.
Yes.
And even if they get another opportunity that is probably TV, let's assume, they don't want to take it because they're saying, I'm loyal to music. But the idea is not to fall in love with a vehicle, fall in love with the why.
Do not be
and
loyal.
And the why is being transformational. And the first person you transform is you. When your pocket is transformed, you're transformed.
True.
Then the second people is the society. Unless your pocket is transformed, how will you transform the society? And most of the time, it's not because we don't have potential, but because we've fallen in love with a vehicle.
Which is not supposed to
we
fall
can
in
be
love
anything.
with. Yeah, interesting. And also, just as we almost about to wind up, I'd like just to find out you've what's it called, created and sold several businesses. So take me through your trail of thoughts. At what point do you decide to sell a particular business, and when it gets to what particular threshold?
Yeah. So I hope I won't sound so complicated, but this is our process. Number one, when we start a business, with the intention of selling the business. So this is the process that we take. Number one, we call it defending the brand. Defending the brand is basically being able to put together the things that you need. Number one, the hardware, the software, the team, the look and feel of the business, and the philosophy that you will run with, how you serve your clientele. So we call that defending the brand. So we take a bit of time just to put that together and build a manual of how do we want people to experience our business, how do we want it to look, who do we want to work with, and we put it together. After that, we go to defending demand. Defending demand to us is where you go out there and look for contracts, but contracts that are not less than 1 year, so that by the time we lock in the contracts, we don't have to keep going out there to look for jobs. We're locking in a contract and we can forget about it for a few years. Some of the contracts that we have been able to lock in, like energy contracts, some are 15 years, 20 years. Think of it that you lock a contract and you don't have to think about it for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
It gives you the perspective and mindset to just focus purely on what you do. So that's basically getting an off-taker signing a contract for you. Then we cross over and say defending margins. So let's assume we are doing something we're selling something it's costing us 10 shillings, let's say, to make So the question is, how much do we keep from the 10 shillings, 2 shillings? So defending the margin is saying, what can we do without compromising the quality of this product
that you're offering?
Yeah. What can we do so that we take it down, so that our cost is lower and our margin is higher?
Interesting.
Then after defending margins, now we scale the business by opening our doors to welcome the participation of investors.
Wow.
Every time investors come in and see those 3 steps, they're not willing to shake hands with us.
Interesting. Wow. I wish I could go on in this conversation, but time is literally up. Quite a good conversation, but I'll have you again on the show. But just a final question that I'm being asked by my director is that, are you going to sing anytime soon? Because you now sound so sophisticated.
I hope so, most likely. But
I
retired. I retired on,
You fell out of love with the vehicle.
Now
you abandoned the old car.
Hopefully one day I'll come back to that vehicle.
Yeah. All right. So I highly appreciate SK for having created time with us. I'm going to invite you again on the show on several times. Quite appreciated. All the best at Gold Avenue Africa. SK does a lot of training for investors, so you can feel free to check out their website. That's Gold Avenue Africa. My name is Ian Dennis, and this has been The Business Coach, where we help entrepreneurs better their business. See you same time next week right here on KTN Home.